Hey guys, this is Miss Young, and we're going to be taking notes over the causes of the Civil War. Oh, not that Civil War, sorry. This Civil War. This is a war that occurs within the United States between the people of the United States, specifically the North versus the South. So get your pencils ready and let's get started. So if you'll quickly take a look at the bottom of your notes, you will see that there are two additional causes that we will not be taking notes about because we've already taken notes on these, and that is sectionalism and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that they are causes, but they are not going to be taking notes. We're not going to take notes over them on this specific page because we just took notes over them previously. So one of our first causes of the Civil War that we're going to talk about is the issue of states' rights. The South felt that their rights as states was threatened by the federal government when it came to the topics of slavery and tariffs. John C. Calhoun, if you think back to the nullification crisis under Andrew Jackson, John C. Calhoun went to South Carolina and told them you can nullify a law if it wrongfully challenges your sovereign rights as a state, or you can just secede. So the South saw the 10th Amendment as proof about states' rights. Now the 10th Amendment is what supports federalism. Federalism is one of our principles of the Constitution. The Constitution has 7 principles, one of them being federalism, and it says that it's basically the relationship between national power and state power. And the 10th Amendment says that any state not specifically given to the federal government is thereby given to the states and to the people. And so South Carolina used this as proof that, you know what, the Constitution doesn't specifically say that the federal government has this power, therefore we get it. We don't like it, so we're not going to do it. So they were trying to nullify the Tariff of Abomination and pretend it didn't exist, and that's where things got hairy during Andrew Jackson. Well, here we are again. This issue of states' rights is still in existence under the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. So write what you see, move on when you're done. Our next cause of the Civil War is the abolition movement. Again, we've talked about it. We're going to take just a little bit of notes, nothing like what we did last time under the social reform. But abolition movement is a movement that supported ending slavery. They saw slavery as morally wrong and wanted to end it. You had people such as Harriet Tubman, a former slave, Frederick Douglass, another former slave, trying to free slaves from the South and get them to the North through what we call the Underground Railroad. Harriet Beecher Stowe is a white woman who wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin, which depicted the evils of slavery. William Lloyd Garrison was an editor of a newspaper called The Liberator, and he was able to write, again, the evils of slavery within his newspaper. It's his. He can write it. And these two books, or excuse me, Uncle Tom's Cabin and the newspaper The Liberator, really stirred the emotions of the North and really started to push them towards supporting the abolition movement. Many people also looked to preachers to denounce slavery. Felt like everyone is God's people, no matter your color, and really was hoping the preachers would support the abolitionist movement. So write what you see and move on when you're done. All right, our next cause is John Brown's raid in Virginia at Harper's Ferry. So basically what happened is John Brown and his sons launched a slave revolt in Harper's Ferry, Virginia. They wanted to capture an arsenal of, it's basically where the South stored their largest collection of almost 20,000 pistols, muskets, weaponry. And their goal was to, or their hopes was that they could arm all of the slaves in this region, and the slaves would then help them fight alongside them. Well, none of the slaves showed up out of fear, and so the uprising was quickly crushed. Now, the North viewed John Brown and his sons as a hero, somebody who fought to get rid of slavery. The South, they saw this as an alarm for future revolts. So the South was a little bit more vigilant about keeping their eyes and ears open for additional revolts. So write what you see, move on when you're done. Our next cause is our final court case. It is the Dred Scott decision. This is, the issue here is that Dred Scott went north. Okay, he was in the South. He went north with his master. And then when he came back home in the South, when his master they just came back home from whatever they were doing in the North, he then sued, Dred Scott sued for his freedom since he had been on free soil. Okay, so, you know, maybe that makes sense. You were a slave, you went to the North, slaves are free in the North, thinking that, well, I should be considered free now that I'm up here visiting. And when the master brings him home, he is still considered a slave, and so he sues for his freedom. Here's the decision that Congress makes. Congress denied citizenship and overturns the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Because he was a slave, he's not even considered a citizen, so you can't even utilize the court system. And then basically, because they do this, it overturns that Missouri Compromise, which was saying that everything above the 36° 30 line is slave, free, and everything below is slave. So the significance here is that it declared the Missouri Compromise unconstitutional, and Congress basically gave up control of the spread of slavery. By denying Dred Scott the opportunity to seek his freedom because of this, it kind of made it look like to the rest of the country that, well, Congress apparently doesn't care that a slave went north and they won't set him free. So I guess it's kind of free game at this point. So this is a big, big decision and kind of favored for the South. Write what you see, move on when you're done. Our next cause is the founding of the Republican Party. This party formed, the Republican Party formed in 1854 to oppose the extension of slavery. And Abraham Lincoln was its first candidate. You ever wondered where the Republican Party came from? Now you know. And Abraham Lincoln is their first candidate. Write what you see, move on when you're done. Our next cause is the election of Abraham Lincoln. So he ran for office, or ran for the presidency as a Republican, and in 1860 he wins. And he does manage to stop the extension of slavery. Now here's where it gets kind of controversial. Because he wins, South Carolina and 6 other states secede immediately from the Union. Okay, the Union is the United States. And because they seceded, they formed their own type of country called the Confederate States of America. Now, the South is extremely shocked that Abraham Lincoln even managed to win because he wasn't even put on the ballots in the South. So the North must have really voted heavily for Abraham Lincoln for him to win if he didn't even show up on the ballots in the South. So if you look at the map on the right, you will see that you have a lot of these states over here seceded. I believe it was these 60. You definitely had South Carolina. Let me erase this so it looks like a hot mess. South Carolina seceded first. Now, again, remember the other ones that wanted to secede under Andrew Jackson, and he threatened to come hang everybody. So like, well, okay, never mind. And now we're under Abraham Lincoln, who does not have the same personality as Andrew Jackson, and they do secede along with 6 other states. So write what you see, move on when you're done. Oh, well, looky there. Our last cause that we're going to take notes about is the issue of slavery, and this is a no-brainer. The Northern abolitionists wanted to end slavery. The South feared that slavery would end if Lincoln won election, which it eventually does end. All compromises that had been made up to this point had stopped working, and there was more debate over slavery being extended into the West. So this map here kind of shows you the divisions of the Civil War. These are the causes. We have not been fighting. There's not necessarily any battles yet to discuss that you need to know about. Right now we're talking about the causes, what leads up to the actual war. And so the red are your Confederate states, the blue are the Union states, and you get your border states where it was kind of torn. Write everything you see and wait for instruction.